Okay, so Pi News episode 79, and I'm doing this from my MacBook just because I can't get access to my Raspberry Pi at the moment, but I would normally do it from a Raspberry Pi. So first story from Tom's Hardware, really cool one this. Raspberry Pis found in abandoned spin scooters in Seattle. So if we scroll in and have a look, we can see that it is a Raspberry Pi 4 in there, with some sort of hat and various different adapters on there. Really surprised to see a Raspberry Pi 4B in there. It's not uncommon to find scooter rental services in many major cities across the world, but when things don't work out and the businesses close shop, they usually take spare stock with them. However, when Spin backed out of Seattle, many residents discovered unused scooters scattered throughout the city. Upon closer inspection of these abandoned devices, or should we say dissection, it was uncovered that they each have a Raspberry Pi 4B inside. This made me think of this Spencer video, which, although this talks about electric cars and the fact that loads of them are abandoned, he also mentions this incredible situation with abandoned e-bikes in Shanghai. Now, I know some of these won't be e-bikes, but I wonder if there are some Raspberry Pis in some of the e-bikes in that stack. It says in the story, Pi enthusiasts were simultaneously befuddled and ready to book their tickets to Seattle. It says the city didn't renew its license and you can find a few remaining Spin scooters around the city. There's obviously going to be some pretty big lithium batteries in there as well, which is worth a reasonable amount of money. And it mentions in the story that it seems like an overpowered device. Really interesting story though, so I'll put a link in the description to it. Next up, one of the first things I saw on Threads, which was the Raspberry Pi store has no restrictions. Buying restrictions at the Raspberry Pi store have been lifted. We have everything in stock, and if you watch to the end of the video you'll learn where to find Raspberry Pi in stock to buy online, and it mentions RPI locator, and we might as well have a look at RPI locator because it's been looking very green recently. This is nice to see. Raspberry Pi 0, 2Ws and Raspberry Pi 4s. When I looked recently the stock was brilliant. Yeah, Raspberry Pi 4 8 gig all over the place, 4 gig models, 2 gig models, 1 gig models. Yeah, really nice to see. There was a time when none of this was green at all. From the official Raspberry Pi news, auto flash multiple Raspberry Pi Picos in no time at all. So if you have a look at how many Raspberry Pi Picos are here, obviously stock hasn't been constrained on Picos. Here's a clever bit of code by James Mitchell on GitHub that will auto flash a Raspberry Pi Pico when you plug it in. This means you can plug in, for example, 10 Picos one after another and have them flash without the need to drag a file into the Pico drive. And there's details here. And next up, PSP receives Raspberry Pi upgrade. Particularly interested in this because my channel name has PSP in it because I ended up creating another YouTube account, something to do with saving videos offline, and that just became my YouTube channel and I never changed it. Love your Sony PSP but tired of playing the same old games? Then check out the PSP i6 Raspberry Pi upgrade development by Othermod. And you can see here it just looks like a standard PSP. And you can do quite a lot of emulation on PSP. I'm not sure if I've ever done a video on the emulation on my PSP, but I had a PS1 emulator in there, Mega Drive, N64. You could also back up your standard PSP games and play it on there. It was a really good system and a nice size, just could have done with a second analog joystick. And now it's about 18 years old, and mine was one of the first Japanese ones that someone I was working for at the time went over to Japan for the launch and they gave them away to all the bosses and he ended up selling it to me. The project replaces the PSP's internal electronics with either a Raspberry Pi 0 or 02 or a Raspberry Pi Compute Module 4. Obviously the Compute Module 4 is a lot more powerful, although I did get some impressive results on the 02W. So obviously you can install Retropie on it, and you can see there's a picture with a 0 in there. So it's a custom PCB that replaces the PSP's original mainboard. Oh, and it looks like the same board will work with Compute Module 4 or Pi 0. Othermod's PCB contains all of the hardware necessary to support the PSP's controls. It even supports LCD backlit adjustment and speaker output. Just super impressive. And I'll link the video. Here we can see Compute Module 4 inside it, running Zelda. Here's the board. Gosh, that was in the early stages it was very confusing. So I'll link both the story and the video in the description. Tom's Hardware, well this is 8 days ago now. Raspberry Pi supply improves, here's where to buy one now. And they obviously talk about RPI locator, but it definitely is. Oh, and a nice little image there. That guy's obviously tiny. So the drought is officially over. and from the official Raspberry Pi site, Decktility handheld PC. And this has, as you can see, a full QWERTY keyboard. So IPS touchscreen running at 800 by 480. Another Compute Module 4. I don't know what the situation is with Compute Module 4s. They certainly seem to be very hard to get hold of. And there's lots of projects around for them at the moment. Chose Raspberry Pi because of the support it has and how easy it is to use. You can see some of the progress that was made and all the 3D printed case bits. And another story from Raspberry Pi News. This was from the 1st of August. Our Matt recently had the chance to visit the Sony factory in Pen Coed in Wales to see where Raspberry Pi computers are made. Obviously Jeff Geerling went there recently as well, and there's another video on that. And there's a short video and it shows some of the robots, so it's definitely worth watching. And this is a very nice image of Pi4’s. It's inspired me to get my PSP out. So FIFA 10 was a PSP game, just to have a look what I had on there. This was an original PlayStation game, Dave Mirra Freestyle BMX. Regular subscribers won't be surprised. That was a Mega Drive emulator, Game Boy Advance emulator, N64 emulator, SNES emulator. Yeah, very impressive. And this is the space they have to put the Compute Module 4 in. It is tiny in there. Compute Module 4 or Raspberry Pi 02W. But then I guess it was space that was used for the UMD, which was the disk drive that you put in a PSP. Anyway, I hope all this helps. Thanks very much for watching. Please like and subscribe.